Jasper Thornfield ducked as a cast-iron skillet sailed over his head, embedding itself in the wooden doorframe with a resounding thunk. 5 pairs of eyes glared at him from various points around the cabin's main room behind overturned furniture, clutching makeshift weapons and radiating enough hostility to melt snow. "Get out!" shrieked the redhead, wielding a poker from the fireplace. "This is our home." "Now hold on." Jasper raised his hands peacefully, his lawyer's document still clutched in one fist. "I know this looks bad, but I can explain a wooden..." Rolling pin whistled past his ear, thrown by a petite brunette perched on the kitchen counter like an angry cat. "Explain to someone who cares, you land-grabbing snake." Jasper had ridden 3 days through the Colorado mountains to reach this remote cabin. Following the cryptic instructions in his great-uncle Mordecai's will, the old mountain man had been legendary for his eccentricities, but nothing had prepared Jasper for this. He'd expected an empty cabin, maybe some rusty traps and moldy furs. He hadn't expected to walk into what looked like an armed rebellion led by 5 of the most beautiful women he'd ever seen. "Ladies, please." He dodged another projectile, this time a leather boot that left a dent in the wall behind him. "I'm not here to throw you out. I just need to understand what's happening." The tallest of the women stepped forward, her raven black hair braided with silver threads and her green eyes blazing with protective fury. She held a rifle with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use it. "What's happening?" she said, in a voice like honey over steel. "Is that another greedy man thinks he can waltz in here and claim what isn't his? We've been taking care of this place for 2 years, stranger. We've earned our place here. My name is Jasper Thornfield," he said carefully, keeping his eyes on the rifle barrel. "Mordecai Thornfield was my great-uncle. He left me this cabin in his will." The woman's grip on the rifle tightened. "Mordecai's dead." The hostility in the room shifted subtly, anger mixing with something that might have been grief. Jasper nodded. Gravely, pneumonia took him 3 weeks ago in Denver. He was staying with distant relatives, trying to recover from a bad fall. "Mordecai wouldn't just abandon us," declared the redhead, though her poker had lowered slightly. "He promised we'd always have sanctuary here." "What kind of sanctuary?" Jasper asked, genuine curiosity overriding his caution. The 5 women exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, the leader with the rifle spoke again. "We're refugees, Mr. Thornfield, from different hells, but refugees all the same." Her voice carried the weight of hard-won survival. "Mordecai offered us safety when no one else would. A place to heal, to start over, to become strong again." Jasper studied their faces, seeing past the anger to the wariness beneath. These weren't ordinary homesteaders or settlers. There was something haunted in their eyes, a shared understanding born of shared trauma. "What are your names?" he asked quietly. The leader hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "I'm Serafina. That's Branwen with the poker, Isadora on the counter, Ophelia by the window, and Zelda near the stairs." Each name was like a piece of music, exotic and beautiful. Jasper found himself wondering what stories lay behind them. What had driven these women to seek refuge in his uncle's remote mountain cabin? "Well, Serafina," he said, slowly reaching into his coat pocket, "I think we need to have a serious conversation." Pulled out Mordecai's will, thick with legal seals and official signatures. "Because, according to this document, my uncle left very specific instructions about this place and the people living in it." Seraphine's eyes narrowed. "What kind of instructions?" "The kind that might change everything for all of us." Jasper looked around at the 5 faces, watching him with various degrees of suspicion and hope. "But first, I think you'd better put down that rifle and hear what the old man really wanted." The tension in the room stretched taut as a bowstring. Outside, wind howled through the pine trees, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf called to its pack. Inside, 5 women who'd found safety in isolation faced the possibility that their sanctuary might become something else entirely. Seraphine's finger moved to the rifle's trigger. You've got exactly 5 minutes to convince us you're not our enemy, Jasper Thornfield. After that, ... She smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. Well, after that, we'll see if you can really handle all 5 of us. Seraphine's rifle remained steady as Jasper unfolded the yellowed papers, his great-uncle's spidery handwriting covering every inch. The other women had crept closer, forming a semicircle around him, like wary wolves studying a potential threat. 2. My nephew Jasper, he read aloud. If you're reading this, then I've finally gone to meet my maker and left you with one hell of a responsibility. He glanced up to find all 5 women listening intently. The 5 ladies currently residing in my cabin are not tenants or squatters. They are my family, chosen and beloved, and I charge you with their protection and well-being. Branwen, the redhead, lowered her poker completely. He called us family. Seraphina escaped a forced marriage to a brute who would have killed her within a year. Jasper continued, watching the dark-haired woman's face pale. Branwen fled religious zealots who branded her a witch for knowing herb lore. Isadora ran from a brothel owner who bought her as a child. Ophelia left behind a husband who used his fists to express displeasure. Zelda escaped an asylum, where she was imprisoned for the crime of being too intelligent for her father's liking. The silence that followed was deafening. Each woman stood frozen, their deepest secrets laid bare by a dead man who'd apparently seen straight through to their souls. How did he know? Whispered Ophelia, a willowy blonde whose blue eyes had gone wide with shock. Uncle Mordecai had a gift for reading people, Jasper said gently. He also had a network of contacts throughout the territories. When someone needed help disappearing, they often found their way to him. Zelda, a striking woman with auburn hair and intelligent amber eyes, stepped forward. What else does the will say? Jasper turned to the next page, his expression growing increasingly surprised as he read. The cabin and all surrounding land, approximately 2,000 acres, is to be held in trust for these 5 women for as long as they desire sanctuary. However, he paused, reading ahead with obvious confusion. I have also left instructions for a different arrangement should all parties be willing. What kind of arrangement? Seraphina demanded, though her rifle had finally dropped to her side. My nephew Jasper is a good man, though he doesn't know it yet. He spent too many years in the city, making money but not meaning. If he proves worthy of their trust, and if they are willing, I propose a partnership that could benefit everyone involved. Isadora, the petite brunette, had climbed down from the counter and was studying Jasper with new interest. What kind of partnership? Jasper shook his head in bewilderment. According to this, Uncle Mordecai believed this land could support a thriving community. There's a natural hot spring that could power a mill, timber rights that could fund expansion, and mineral deposits that could provide long-term security. He looked up at the 5 faces surrounding him. He envisioned a place where people like you people running from the past could build new futures. And where do you fit into this grand vision? Seraphina asked, suspicion still coloring her tone. Apparently, I'm supposed to provide the capital, business connections, and legal protection to make it work. Jasper's laugh held no humor. He also mentioned something about learning to live again instead of merely existing. The women exchanged those silent communications again, years of shared hardship allowing them to speak without words. Finally, Branwen broke the silence. You said we have to trust you. But what do we know about you, Jasper Thornfield? What are you running from? The question hit like a physical blow. Jasper sank into a rough-hewn chair, suddenly feeling the weight of his own unexamined life. I'm running from emptiness, he said quietly. 3 months ago, I had everything a man was supposed to want: a successful law practice, a mansion in Denver, respect in society. Then my partner embezzled our client's money and disappeared, leaving me to face the consequences. He stared at his hands. I lost everything: my reputation, my home, my so-called friends. The only thing left was a letter from a lawyer telling me about Uncle Mordecai's death and this inheritance. "So you're broke and desperate," Ophelia observed, though not unkindly. "Completely." Jasper met her gaze honestly. "I came here thinking I'd sell the cabin and land, use the money to start over somewhere else. I never expected to find... He gestured around the room at their makeshift fortress of overturned furniture and scattered weapons. "This," Zelda moved closer, her intelligent eyes studying his face with scientific precision. "You could still sell, force us out, and take the money." "I could," he agreed, "but I won't." "Why not?" Serafina challenged. Jasper stood slowly, his decision crystallizing as he spoke. "Because Uncle Mordecai was right about one thing: I've been existing, not living. And looking at what you five have built here, the way you fought to protect each other and this place... He spread his hands. "Maybe it's time I learned what it means to actually fight for something worthwhile." The wind outside had died down, and in the sudden quiet, the crackling of the fire seemed unnaturally loud. 5 women who'd learned not to trust anyone faced a man offering partnership instead of domination. "So," Serafina said slowly, "you're proposing that we trust you with our sanctuary, our safety, our futures. I'm proposing we build something together that's bigger than any of us could manage alone." Jasper met each pair of eyes in turn. "But only if you want to. The choice is yours." Branwen laughed suddenly, a sound like silver bells in the mountain air. "Well, that's certainly not what I expected when I threw that skillet at your head." "Can handle all 5 of us?" Serafina asked, echoing the challenge she'd made earlier. But now the words carried a different weight: not a threat, but a genuine question about partnership and possibility. Jasper smiled for the first time since entering the cabin. "I guess we're about to find out." Dawn broke over the mountains too. Find Jasper sleeping on the floor beside the cold fireplace, wrapped in a moth-eaten blanket the women had grudgingly provided. He woke to the sound of hushed voices and the smell of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Serafina stood over him, fully dressed and holding a steaming cup. "Time to see if you're more than pretty words, city man." Jasper sat up, wincing at the ache in his back from sleeping on hard-packed earth. "What did you have in mind?" "Winter's coming fast in these mountains," Bronwyn said from the kitchen, where she was stirring something that smelled like heaven. "If you're staying, you need to prove you can pull your weight." Over the next 3 days, the women put Jasper through what he came to think of as his mountain trials. Zelda, who possessed an engineer's mind despite her lack of formal education, set him to repairing the cabin's damaged roof before the next snowfall. Isadora tested his hunting skills, leading him on a grueling trek through the high country in pursuit of winter meat. Ophelia challenged his diplomatic abilities, forcing him to mediate a dispute with suspicious neighbors who'd grown protective of their 5 mysterious women. But it was Branwen who delivered the most unexpected test. "You need to understand what we've survived," she said on the 4th morning, leading him to a hidden grove behind the cabin. Not the stories Mordecai wrote down, but the truth of it. In the grove's center stood 5 wooden crosses, each carved, with symbols that seemed to tell a story. Branwen knelt beside the first one, her fingers tracing the rough wood. "This represents the woman I was before I came here. Brianna O'Malley, daughter of Irish immigrants, raised to believe God, punished. Women who stepped outside their proper place." Her voice was steady, but Jasper could hear the pain beneath. "When I started healing people with herbs and midwifery, the local preacher decided I was trafficking with devils. They branded me Jasper, right here. She touched her left shoulder, marked me as a witch, and drove me into the wilderness to die. She moved to the second cross. Serafina was Sira Valentina then, engaged to a cattle baron's son who beat servants for sport. When she refused to marry him, he and his father hired men to break her spirit. She still has nightmares about the cellar where they kept her. The third cross bore intricate carvings that hurt to look at. Isadora doesn't even remember her real name. Sold into prostitution at 12, kept drugged and compliant for 8 years. She escaped by setting fire to the brothel, but not before. Branwen's voice broke. Some things can't be unseen, can't be undone. Jasper felt sick, but Branwen wasn't finished. The fourth cross showed a delicate rose wrapped in thorns. Ophelia was married to a Boston merchant who considered her a decoration. When she miscarried their first child, he blamed her for being weak and worthless. The beatings escalated until she couldn't hide the bruises anymore. The final cross bore mathematical equations carved in flowing script. Zelda's father was a prominent doctor who couldn't stand having a daughter smarter than his sons. When she corrected his medical diagnoses one too many times, he had her committed to an asylum for female hysteria and unnatural intellectual pretensions. They used ice baths and isolation to try to break her mind. Branwen stood, brushing dirt from her knees. We buried our old selves here, Jasper. These crosses mark the women we were broken, desperate, half-dead. The women living in that cabin are who we chose to become. Why are you telling me this? Jasper asked hoarsely. Because you need to understand what you're really asking when you talk about partnership. Branwen's green eyes were fierce with protective love. We're not looking for a man to complete us or fix us. We're whole as we are. If you stay, if we let you into our family, it's because you add something valuable to what we've already built. They walked back to the cabin in thoughtful silence. That evening, as snow began to fall in earnest, the 6 of them gathered around the newly repaired fireplace. Jasper had passed most of their tests. The roof was solid. He'd brought down a 10-point. Buck and the neighbors were grudgingly willing to trade with him. So Serafina said, settling into the chair that was clearly hers by right of leadership. What happens now? Jasper looked around the circle of faces, seeing past their beauty to the strength beneath. These women had survived horrors that would have destroyed weaker souls, had rebuilt themselves from the ground up, had created a sanctuary where healing could happen. Now I ask you to teach me, he said simply. I know business and law and city politics. You know survival and healing. And what it means to protect something precious. Maybe together we can build something that serves everyone. Isadora spoke up for the first time that evening. What do you want from us, Jasper? Truly. The question hung in the air like smoke from the fire. Jasper considered his answer carefully, knowing it would shape everything that came after. I want to belong somewhere, he admitted. I want to be part of something that matters. And I want to help make sure no one can ever take this sanctuary away from you. Zelda leaned forward, her amber eyes calculating. That's a dangerous promise. Are you prepared for what it might cost? I'm prepared to find out. The wind howled outside. But inside the cabin, warmth and possibility shared space with caution and hope. 5 women who'd learned to trust only each other faced the prospect of expanding their carefully guarded circle. All right, Serafina said finally, but we do this our way. No man rules here, not even you. Decisions get made together, or not. At all, Jasper nodded solemnly. Agreed. And if you ever try to control any of us, or hurt any of us, or betray what we've built here. Seraphine's smile was sharp as winter wind. Well, let's just say we've gotten very creative about dealing with threats. Despite the warning, or perhaps because of it, Jasper felt something tight in his chest finally begin to loosen. For the First time in months, he was exactly where he wanted to be. 2 weeks into their uneasy partnership, trouble arrived in the form of Deputy Marshal Cornelius, Blackthorn, and 3 armed men. Jasper was splitting wood when Seraphine's urgent whistle cut through the morning air. Their agreed signal for danger approaching. By the time he reached the cabin, all 5 women had vanished like mountain mist, leaving only Jasper to face the lawmen alone. This, too, had been planned. "Mr. Thornfield," the marshal said, dismounting with the stiff movements of a man more accustomed to saloons than saddles, "I'm here on official business regarding harboring fugitives." Jasper set down his axe carefully, mind racing. "I'm afraid I don't follow, Marshal. This is private property, legally inherited and properly documented." "That may be, but we have reports of criminal women hiding on your land." Blackthorn pulled out a leather portfolio thick with wanted posters. "Syrah, Valentina wanted for arson and assault. Brianna O'Malley, suspected of practicing witchcraft and causing unnatural deaths. The woman calling herself Isadora, wanted for murder and destruction of property." "I don't know anyone by those names," Jasper replied truthfully. Those women were buried in the grove behind the cabin. The women he knew had different names, different lives. One of Blackthorn's men, a scarred brute with tobacco-stained teeth, spat in the dirt. "Don't play dumb, lawyer. We know they're here. Tracked them all the way from Colorado Springs." "Oh, you're welcome to search," Jasper said calmly. "Though I should warn you, winter weather's been hard on the roof. Structural integrity might be compromised." It was a calculated risk. The women were hidden in the mine shaft Mordecai had carved into the mountainside. But if the lawmen found the entrance, Blackthorn, single quotes, eyes narrowed. "You seem mighty confident for a man harboring desperados." "I'm confident because I'm innocent of any wrongdoing." Jasper met the marshal's stare without flinching. "These accusations, can you prove any of them? Or are you chasing shadows based on the word of men who might have their own reasons for wanting these women found?" The scarred deputy stepped forward aggressively. "Listen here, you. That's enough, Pike," Blackthorn snapped. He studied Jasper with the calculating look of a man who'd built his career on reading people. "Mr. Thornfield, I'm going to ask you directly. Are you harboring any fugitive women on this property?" Jasper thought of Seraphine's rifle, of Branwen's gentle hands healing wounded animals, of Isadora's quiet laughter as she taught him to track deer, of Ophelia's patient instruction in mountain survival, of Zelda's brilliant mind designing improvements for their water system. "Marshal," he said quietly, "I'm harboring 5 of the finest women I've ever known. If that makes them fugitives in someone's eyes, then I'd question the justice of those who issued the warrants." The admission hung in the cold air like a challenge. Pike's hand moved to his gun, but Blackthorn held up a restraining finger. "That's an interesting answer, Mr. Thornfield. Almost sounds like you're choosing sides." "I'm choosing what's right over what's legal," Jasper replied. "Sometimes they're not the same thing." What happened next would have been comical if the stakes weren't so high. A rumbling sound echoed from the mountainside, followed by a crash that shook the ground beneath their feet. Jasper's compromised roof warning had been cover for Zelda's real plan. She'd rigged the abandoned mine entrance to collapse if anyone got too close to their hiding spot. "Avalanche," Jasper shouted, pointing toward the mountainside where a perfectly controlled rock slide was blocking what had been the mine shaft entrance. "Everyone, get back." In the confusion that followed, as the lawmen's horses spooked and Pike was thrown into a snowbank, Jasper caught a glimpse of movement in the trees. His 5 partners were repositioning, and from the glint of metal among the pines, they weren't planning to remain hidden much longer. Blackthorn fought to control his mount, his authority shaken along with his composure. "This isn't over, Thornfield. I know those women are here, and I'll be back with a federal warrant. You do that, Marshall. But next time, maybe send someone who actually knows how to investigate instead of just intimidate. Jasper's voice carried a confidence he'd never felt in his Denver law office. And bring better men. These mountains aren't kind to amateurs. As the lawmen rode away, cursing and nursing bruised pride along with bruised bodies, Jasper felt a presence behind him. He turned to find all 5 women emerging from positions that would have given them clear shots at the departing men. Federal warrant, Serafina mused, lowering her rifle. That complicates things. How long do we have? Ophelia asked, her usual gentle demeanor replaced by tactical calculation. Zelda was already moving toward the cabin. 3 days, maybe 4 if the weather turns bad. But they'll be back with more men and legal authority. Branwen touched Jasper's arm gently. You could have turned us in. Probably would have earned yourself a reward and a clean slate. The thought never crossed my mind, Jasper said honestly. Isadora smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, it reached her eyes. No, I don't suppose it did. So? Serafina said, shouldering her rifle with practiced ease. Looks like you really are one of us now. The question is, can you handle what comes next? Jasper looked at the 5 faces surrounding him, women who'd survived impossible odds, who'd built something beautiful from ashes, who were now trusting him with their lives and freedom. I guess we'll find out together, he said. But even as he spoke, he was already formulating plans. Mordecai's will had mentioned business connections and legal resources. It was time to see if a disgraced Denver lawyer could find ways to fight that didn't involve guns and hiding in mines. The partnership was about to be tested in ways none of them had anticipated. Snow fell steadily as Jasper spread maps across the kitchen table, weighing down the corners with mason jars while 5 pairs of eyes studied the terrain around their sanctuary. 3 days had passed since Marshal Blackthorn's visit. The approaching storm was both blessing and curse, would delay the federal agents, but it would also trap everyone in the valley. Here's what I learned in town, Jasper said, pointing to various marked locations on the map. Blackthorn's working for private interests, not federal justice. Someone's paying him to bring you back. Zelda leaned over the map, her engineering mind immediately grasping the strategic implications. The mine entrance we collapsed was just one way in. There are 3 other approaches through the high passes. It's all blocked by snow this time of year, Serafina added. But come spring, ... We won't be here come spring, Isadora said quietly. Will we? The question hung heavy as the storm clouds gathering outside. Jasper had spent 2 sleepless nights wrestling with legal precedents and moral obligations, searching for a solution that didn't involve his 5 partners scattering to the winds again. Actually, he said, pulling out a different set of documents, we might not have to run at all. Branwen frowned at the papers. What are those? Corpiators of Incorporation for the Thornfield Mining and Timber Consortium. Jasper's grin was sharp with the thrill of legal battle. Filed yesterday in Denver, with 5 equal partners and myself as managing director. Ophelia's blue eyes widened. You made us business partners. I made you invisible, Jasper corrected. Serafina Valdez, Branwen O'Brien, Isadora Chen, Ophelia Nordstrom, and Zelda Kowalski are all legitimate businesswomen with established identities and clean backgrounds. The women Marshal Blackthorn is hunting. They don't exist anymore. The silence stretched until Serafina began to laugh, rich, genuine sound that transformed her entire face. You forged us new identities. I created new legal entities based on careful research into deceased persons with similar backgrounds. Jasper corrected primly. Everything is completely legitimate and properly documented. Zelda was studying the incorporation papers with growing amazement. These are masterful, but how did you manage the financial backing? We'd need significant capital to make this believable. Jasper's smile became genuinely warm. That's where Uncle Mordecai's real legacy comes in. Turns out the old mountain man was smarter than anyone gave him credit for. He pulled out a bank statement that made all 5 women gasp. He's been quietly investing in mining claims and timber rights for 30 years. Our little mining consortium is worth approximately $200,000. Sweet Jesus, Branwen whispered. We're rich. We're powerful. Jasper corrected. Rich is just money. Power is having options, having the resources to fight back, having the legal standing to demand respect instead of begging for mercy. Isadora was studying her new identity papers with tears in her eyes. Isadora Chen, mining engineer and surveyor. You gave me a profession. I gave you what you already were, Jasper replied gently. You just needed the credentials to match your skills. The sound of approaching horses cut through their celebration. Serafina was at the window in seconds. Rifle in hand, 6 riders. Blackthorn's back, and he brought friends. Federal Marshals Ophelia confirmed, her voice tense. I can see the badges from here. Jasper straightened his tie and smoothed his hair, transforming from mountain man back into the lawyer he'd once been. Ladies, it's showtime. Successful businesswomen, not fugitives. Act like you belong here, because you do. Marshal Blackthorn dismounted with considerably more authority this time, flanked by 2 federal deputies and backed by 3 local guns for hire. But when Jasper opened the door to greet them, he wasn't alone. 5 confident, well-dressed women stood behind him, not hiding, but proudly visible. Marshal Blackthorn, Jasper said cordially. Back so soon. I hope you brought better weather gear this time. Cut the pleasantries, Thornfield. We have federal warrants for the arrest of 5 fugitive women believed to be on your property. Blackthorn produced an official-looking document with impressive seals. I'm afraid there's been some confusion, Serafina said, stepping forward, with the poise of someone accustomed to command. I'm Serafina Valdez, senior partner in the Thornfield Mining Consortium. Perhaps you could clarify exactly who you're looking for. One of the federal deputies consulted his notes. Sierra Valentina wanted for, never heard of her. Serafina interrupted smoothly. Though the name sounds familiar. Wasn't she that unfortunate woman who died in the Durango hotel fire last year? Jasper nodded gravely. Tragic story. Poor woman was fleeing an abusive engagement, if I recall correctly. Blackthorn's eyes narrowed dangerously. Don't play games with me. No games, Marshal, just facts. Jasper gestured to the women behind him. These are my business partners and the owners of this property. If you have warrants for their arrest, I'd like to see the specific charges and evidence. The next hour became a masterclass in legal maneuvering. Every wanted poster Blackthorn produced was met with death certificates, witness statements, and documentation proving the fugitive in question had met an unfortunate end months or years earlier. The women he was hunting simply didn't exist anymore. This is impossible, Pike snarled, frustration making him careless. I saw that red-headed witch myself, saw her burn down the brothel in Colorado Springs. That's an interesting accusation. Brenwyn said coolly. I assume you have evidence of this crime. Testimony from reliable witnesses. Because filing false accusations against a law-abiding citizen is itself a federal offense. The scarred deputy's face went pale as he realized his mistake. By placing himself at the scene of a crime, he'd just confessed to being present during what the official reports listed as an accidental fire of unknown origin. By the time the confrontation ended, Marshal Blackthorn and his men were in full retreat, their authority undermined by superior documentation and legal expertise. But as they prepared to ride away, Blackthorn fired one final shot. This isn't finished, he called back. Someone wants these women found, and they're paying well for results. Then perhaps, Jasper replied calmly, you should ask yourself why. Someone would pay so much to recapture women who are supposedly dead. As the lawmen disappeared into the swirling snow, the 6 partners stood on their porch, watching the storm swallow their enemies. They'd won this battle, but the war was far from over. So Serafina said, slipping her arm through Jasper's, "Still think you can handle all 5 of us?" Jasper looked at his partners, brilliant, fierce, beautiful women who trusted him with their lives and freedom, and felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood. The absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. "Ask me again in 50 years, he said. Spring arrived early in the Colorado mountains, bringing with it unexpected visitors and revelations that would test the bonds forged through a winter of shared purpose. Jasper was working in the expanded mineshaft when Zelda's voice echoed from the entrance. "Jasper, company coming, and they're carrying flowers, not weapons." He emerged into sunlight to find 5 women on horseback approaching the cabin, their fine clothes and confident bearing marking them as ladies of means. Behind them rode an older man whose stern features seemed oddly familiar. Judge Augustus Fairmont. The man introduced himself as he dismounted. "I believe you knew my daughter." Jasper felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Lily, the woman who stepped forward, bore little resemblance to the fragile banker's daughter who'd rejected his marriage proposal 3 years earlier. This woman had steel in her spine and purpose in her stride, her blonde hair pinned back severely and her green eyes blazing with determined intelligence. "Hello, Jasper." Lily Fairmont's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "We need to talk." The reunion took place in the cabin's main room, but the dynamics were unlike anything Jasper could have imagined. His 5 partners arranged themselves in what he now recognized as a protective formation, while Lily's companions, introduced as fellow members of the Colorado Women's Suffrage Association, did the same. "We've been tracking the activities of Deputy Marshal Blackthorne," Judge Fairmont explained, his weathered hands folded on the table. "The man's been taking money to hunt down women who've escaped various forms of legal slavery, forced marriages, indenture contracts, illegal confinements." "We know about the forged identities," Lily added, her gaze moving between Jasper and his partners with keen assessment. "Very clever work. But paper shields only hold so long against determined enemies." Serafina leaned back in her chair, studying their visitors with the wariness of someone who'd learned not to trust unexpected allies. "What do you want from us?" "A partnership," said one of Lily's companions, a striking woman with silver-streaked hair. "I'm Margaret Thornton, and I represent a network of safe houses and legal advocates across 3 territories. We've been fighting the same battles you're fighting, just on a larger scale." The conversation that followed revealed a web of connections Jasper had never suspected. The women's suffrage movement wasn't just about voting rights. It was about creating a parallel system of justice for women failed by traditional law enforcement. Safe houses, forged documents, witness protection, and, when necessary, armed resistance. "The question," Judge Fairmont said, his eyes fixed on Jasper, "is whether you're willing to expand your operation. We need a secure base in this region, and your mining consortium provides perfect cover." "What would that involve?" Jasper asked, though part of him already knew the answer would change everything.